Unit 1 Introduction to Organizational Behavior. 1.1 Introduction. You might wonder whether how can work environment influence the performance of employees as well as of the organization. In that case, it is important for you to understand that the characteristics of the organizational system and formal-informal dynamics at work are important environmental factors that influence people's behavior. In order to manage people as well as to understand work behavior, managers keep continually upgrading all aspects of their businesses, and especially the human side of the enterprise. And this is where the role of organizational behavior, OB, comes in. The field of organizational behavior concerns itself with the study of the behavior of individuals and groups in the context of organizations. In this unit, we will analyze the field of organizational behavior at different levels. You will also be explained about its historical antecedents and characteristics. 1.2 The field of organizational behavior, OB. The field of OB concerns itself with the study of the behavior of individuals and groups in the context of organizations. The following equation provides a fundamental basis for understanding OB. Behavior equals F, P, E, where P refers to personal characteristics and E represents the environment. Human behavior thus is a function of the individual's personal characteristics and the environmental context. Our personal characteristics are based on genetic factors plus all the past learning experiences that have shaped who we are. We bring these personal characteristics into the organizational situation, which in turn affects the way we think and act. Environmental context factors such as the organizational structure, culture, nature of the job, management style, and so on also have a direct influence on our behavior. 13 Definition of organizational behavior, OB. OB is concerned not only with individual-level behavior within organizations, but also with macro-level processes, such as organizational strategy, structure and change. There is no doubt that although OB does not portray the whole of management, and neither does it intend to, OB has come into its own as a field of study, research, and application. Let us now formally define OB with the help of some definitions. The study of the structure, functioning and performance of organizations and the behavior of groups and individuals within them. The field that seeks knowledge of behavior in organizational settings by systematically studying individual, group, and organizational processes. A field of study that investigates the impact that individuals, groups, and structure have on behavior within organizations, for the purpose of applying such knowledge toward improving an organization's effectiveness. It would be useful to describe three common key aspects of these definitions to understand clearly what is meant by OB. 1.3.1 Systematic study. OB seeks to develop a base of knowledge using a systematic, empirical and research-oriented approach. A scientific approach is said to be a central defining characteristic of modern OB. Human behavior in organizations is complex and often difficult to understand, and like any other science, OB practitioners seek knowledge to describe, understand, predict, and control behavior in organizations. OB is scientific because of the information and methodology it represents. Its information results from inquiries carried out according to 4 scientific core values: accuracy, objectivity, skepticism, and open-mindedness, and its methods consist of the procedures involved in making such investigations. Concepts and theories in OB invariably arise out of extensive research. It is important to note that theories in OB are much more descriptive than prescriptive. This means that although the participant provides information that gives us a better understanding of human behavior in organizations, no attempt is made to say what the behavior should be. 1.3.23 Levels of analysis: individual, group and organization. All the definition of BAPCH depict that the field focuses on behavior at three distinct levels of analysis. Level 1, individual, where the focus is on processes /phenomenon such as values, attitudes, beliefs, intelligence, motivation etc. that influence how people behave as individuals. Level 2, group, this is more concerned with social and interpersonal aspects, such as group dynamics and leadership. Level 3, organization, the main concern here is the behavior of an organization as a whole, for example its culture, structure and processes. The field of BAPCH recognizes that all three levels of analysis must be used to comprehend the complex dynamics of behavior within organizations. For example, in order to understand a process like job satisfaction, it is important to delve into individual characteristics like one's age, gender, education, etc., group processes such as relations with supervisor, team members, and organizational factors such as organizational culture, structure, etc. 1.3.3 Basic and application-oriented. The field of BAPCH is both basic and applied in nature, basic in generating knowledge, research, and applied in using that knowledge, practice. On one hand, it tries to scientifically study individual and group behavior in organizations, on the other, it addresses the practical task of improving individual and organizational performance and enhance member satisfaction. BAPCH applies the knowledge gained about individuals, groups and organizations on behavior to make organizations work more effectively. BAPCH can be understood as a human tool for human benefit. The main intention of BAPCH is for those who want to make their career in organizations should better understand the complexities of human behavior. BAPCH can be very useful to practicing managers, irrespective of the type of organization. BAPCH contributes towards providing present and future managers with a better understanding of the problems which are encountered while managing and working with people. It should also help them to realize the alternative solutions available when confronted by human relations problems within the organization. 1.4 Historical antecedents of organizational behavior. Organizational behavior emerged as a significant field long back when people tried out ways to understand and predict how can the employees be managed to behave in work situations, only that it was done in a non-scientific manner and in bits and pieces. The studies towards employees' behavior in organization formally started in 1920s when the Western Electric Company conducted a series of studies of the behavior of workers at its Hawthorne Works plant in Cicero, Illinois. Though the father of such scientific management of employees is said to be Taylor, who developed an organizational behavior theory on the basis of classical management theories. Let us discuss these series of incidents which lead to the emergence of organizational behavior as a separate discipline. 1.4.1 Scientific management studies. Scientific management of employees was based on the work of Taylor at the Midvale Steel Company in the 1900s. An engineer by profession, Taylor believed that by redesigning the work situation, both higher output for the company and higher wages for the worker could be achieved. In his early years as a foreman in the steel industry, he saw different workers doing the same job in different ways. He felt that each man could not be doing the job in the optimal way, and he set out to find the one best way to perform the job. His basic premise proved to be correct, and in some instances his proposed method resulted in increased productivity. He found that if the employees are trained to when to work and when to rest, then this leads to an increase in average productivity of a worker per day, with less reported fatigue, which in turn resulted in increased wages for them, and reduced costs for the company. In his book Shop Management, Taylor explained management's role in motivating workers to avoid natural soldiering, the natural tendency of people to take it easy. In his book entitled Scientific Management, Taylor argued that the objective of management should be to increase progress of the employer as well as of the employee. The basic tenets of Taylor's theory were: 1. Physical work can be scientifically studied to determine the optimal method, in minimum number of steps, of performing a job. 2. Workers can be made more efficient by instructing them on how to do their jobs. 3. Workers will follow those instructions, provided they are paid appropriately. People are primarily motivated by economic rewards, that is money, and are eager to get better economic positions. Criticism of Taylor's approach. Taylor's work was criticized on the grounds of dehumanizing the workplace and promoting the idea of an economic man, someone who works only for money. He was opposed for inhumanely exploiting the workers for higher wages. He would utilize maximum effort of few workers and thus leading to unemployment during that time. Despite the controversial nature of his work, he significantly exhibited that the workplace could be studied and developed scientifically. 1.4.2 Human Relations Movement, Hawthorne Studies, the Neoclassical Approach. In 1924, a significant series of study which was called as the Hawthorne Experiments, named after Western Electric Company's Hawthorne plant in Chicago, were conducted. Originally conceived as a test of some aspects of Taylor's principles, the researchers were trying to find out the optimal level of illumination required for the workers to produce telephone equipment. Instead of finding the Taylor's assumed one best way, the researchers found that productivity increased after each change in lighting, the intensity of light, no matter how bright or dim they made it. Eventually, they concluded that the workers were responding to the attention they were getting as part of the special research study, and this phenomenon came to be known as the Hawthorne effect. Prior to such finding, the approach that dominated towards making people work was a classical approach, i.e., bureaucratic or machine theory. The classical approach viewed employees as a part of the job, and the aim was to manage human activity to achieve maximum efficiency. Moreover, these classical views of organization assumed a top-down management point of view, emphasizing the authority structure of the organization. So, the task was to design the job according to scientific guidelines and then provide an incentive, usually piecework, to get workers to comply with the will of the management. But it was found that the management was no longer the controlling force for the Hawthorne researchers, also called neoclassical theorists. Rather, they argued that management can govern only with consent of the workers, and that workers actually influence management decisions by controlling the impression that management had of a proper day's work. Environmental forces such as management directives, human capabilities, the state of technology, and economic considerations are the influencing factors of employees' performance. Likewise, human motivation, perceptions, and job attitudes are influential as well and are ignored at management's level. The Hawthorne studies can be divided into 5 major parts. 1.4.2.1 Experiments on illumination. In the series of the study, the first study investigated the effect of illumination on productivity of female employees in 3 selected departments. The researchers installed various sets of lights in the workrooms. In some cases, the light was intense, in others, it was reduced considerably. While the control group worked under a constant intensity of light, the experimental group began working in the similar intensity of light as that of the control group, which gradually was reduced. Strangely, productivity increased in both conditions. Employees seemed to be responding positively to the novelty of the situation and were motivated by the desire to please the researchers, the Hawthorne effect. The results of this study lead to the conclusion that there were some other factors that might be responsible for productivity. This led to the other 4 studies. 1.4.2.2 Relay Assembly Test Room. The aim of the second study was to examine the effect of certain variables like rest pause, length of the working day, free lunch, and method of payment on the level of employees' productivity. Greater control was exercised by placing small group of employees in separate rooms that were similar, in terms of work layout, chairs, fixtures, and were kept away from the regular working force. The variation in the conditions again produced extremely puzzling results. Each test period had higher production records than the preceding one. The researchers found that the production increased irrespective of the rest pauses and shorter hours. By trying to control variables, they had introduced a new one, by discarding the daily monotonous routine, a social situation that involved changed attitudes and interpersonal situations which inspired employees to produce more. This led to the next study. 1.4.2.3 Mass Interviewing Program. In Study 3, the concern of the researchers shifted from bringing out changes in the work environment to a study of attitudes concerning human relations. An interviewing program was launched and supervisors were chosen to conduct the interviews in order to gain information about worker attitudes towards working conditions, supervision, and job. It was found that the employees were psychologically benefited, felt important, as a result of being interviewed. However, it was also found that employees reacted differently to the same surroundings. Further, they were responding as part of the social organization of the group in which they worked and in relation to their position in this group. A trend of emergence of informal personal leadership was also observed in these groups, which led to the fourth study. 1.4.2.4 Bank Wiring Observation Room. The fourth study attempted to examine the existence of social groups within the company. The observer was asked to note the formal relationship between the supervisor and employees, and also all informal groupings of the men. It was observed in the first week, the men appeared to be working all the time and were cautious towards the observer. The employees feared that because they were being studied, the company is eventually going to raise the amount of work they were expected to do each day. In order to get limited task or work, the men within the informal group agreed to keep their output low, even if they get a lesser wage. Further, emergence of an intricate social organization was observed that tried to protect the group. In contradiction to the results of the first study, where productivity rose, this study revealed a restriction in the production output. 1.4.2.5 Personnel Counseling. This study aimed at two objectives. First, to diagnose the problems of employees and work with supervisors on their method of supervision, and the second was to improve the method of communication within the company. This study enhanced the personal adjustments, supervisor-employee relations, and employee management relations. In 1933, Mayo made an interim report on the Hawthorne studies and insisted upon the human relations movement. The Hawthorne studies showed the importance of informal work groups and their effects on production, the importance of employee attitudes, the value of having a sympathetic and understanding supervisor, and the need to treat people as humans and not as capital. 1.5 Characteristics of the field of BAPCH today. Now that you have some understanding of what is meant by BAPCH and its goals, let us turn our attention to some of the major characteristics of the field today. 1.5.1 BAPCH seeks the betterment of human resources. Consider this grim scenario from the early part of 20th century. Factories were huge, noisy, hot, and highly regimented, callous and brutal places to work. Bosses demanded more and more of their employees, and treated them like disposable machines, replacing those who quit or died from accidents with others who waited outside the factory gates. The supply of labor was far greater than its supply. It is obvious from the above that managers held very negative views of employees. This traditional view of management was termed Theory X by Douglas MacGregor. This philosophy of management assumes that people are inherently lazy, dislike work, and will avoid work if they can. As a result, management needs to closely supervise workers and develop comprehensive systems of control. Beliefs of this theory lead to mistrust, highly restrictive supervision, and a punitive atmosphere. Now contrast this with the present-day scenario. Companies are going out of their way to retain young talent, rushing to fulfill every wish of Generation Y, from giving them training and developmental opportunities to even gifting them ceiling fans for their homes. This sums up the Theory Y approach to management that is more optimistic and paints a more positive picture than Theory X. See Table 1 for a summary of differences between Theory X and Theory Y. It is believed that work is as natural to employees as play. Given the right conditions, employees will seek achievement and responsibility and will work hard, without being pushed. Management's job thus is to create those conditions that make people want to perform as desired. MacGregor thinks that Theory Y managers are more likely than Theory X managers to develop the climate of trust with employees that is required for human resource development. This would include managers communicating openly with subordinates, minimizing the difference between superior-subordinate relationships, empowering subordinates and allowing them to participate in decision-making. Theory Y approach is strongly associated with prompting the betterment of human resources, and is clearly the perspective that prevails among those interested in AB. The human resources approach prevalent in AB today is developmental. It is concerned with the growth and development of people toward higher levels of competency, creativity and fulfillment, with the recognition that people are the central resources in any organization and any society. Unlike the traditional management approach of the 1900s, which was directive and controlling, the present approach to management is supportive. It helps employees to become better, more responsible persons, and tries to create a climate in which employees make full use of their abilities. The manager's primary role changes from control of employees to active support of their growth and performance. 1.5.2 abuses a contingency approach. Consider the following questions. What is the current inflation rate in India? You can certainly answer this question, or at least find out the correct answer. Now try this. What is the most effective way of designing the workplace? What is the one best way of performing a job? What is the most effective way to design a machine to optimize safety? What is the most effective way of reducing fatigue? It is perhaps possible to answer these questions. Traditional scientific management, and more recently human engineering, seeks to find answers to such questions. Now consider these. What is the most effective way of motivating people? Is money the best motivator for employees? Which style of leadership works best? Although these questions are reasonable and vital to the functioning of organizations and its workforce, can we answer these questions with a simple yes/no or even a one-line answer? The answer to most such questions is it depends. There is no one best way when it comes to understanding such complex phenomena. This is what happens when human factors take the center stage in our approach, instead of the workplace. When it comes to studying human behavior at the workplace, there are no simple answers. Traditional management relied on principles to provide one best way of managing. This best way was applied regardless of the type of organization, situation or the kind of people involved. Principles of managing were considered to be universal. No longer is there a best way. The contingency approach to AB implies that different situations require different behavioral practices for effectiveness. Behavior in work settings is the complex result of many interacting forces. As our knowledge of behavior on the job becomes more and more complex, it becomes more and more difficult to give straightforward answers. It does not mean that straight answers are desirable. Rather, it is usually necessary to answer in phrases like, if A, then B, under conditions X, Y and Z. Let us take the example of work stress to demonstrate the contingency approach. Have you ever wondered why some individuals working in the same company with the same boss find their jobs so stressful that they develop physiological symptoms like hypertension, while others cope well with it and even appear cheerful? People at the workplace may face a number of stresses, environmental, for example political, economic or social, organizational, structure, culture, politics, immediate social context, relations with boss, work group, peers, and individual, for example role conflict. While these may be in part common to some, the degree of stress experienced and the ways in which a person reacts to it is influenced by a number of moderating variables, such as lifestyle, social support available, cognitive appraisal of stresses, life events, biographic actors, like age, gender, and so on, etc. All these together eventually determine what kind of outcomes physiological, psychological, cognitive, or behavioral will the person show, and if at all he will develop any such outcomes. Such an approach characterizes the field of BAPCH, and to appreciate the role of human factors at the workplace which are complex, dynamic and not universal is to understand such an contingency approach to BAPCH. 1.5.3 BAPCH has a multidisciplinary focus. BAPCH is a blended discipline that has grown out of contributions from a number of disciplines. In fact, BAPCH may be regarded as even more multidisciplinary than organizational psychology. Organizational behavior is more eclectic in its approach, drawing heavily from a variety of disciplines, while organizational psychology draws mainly from subfield within psychology. Among those that have contributed to the study of BAPCH are psychology, social psychology, sociology, engineering, anthropology, management, and even medicine. Let us look at them one by one. Quite obviously, the biggest influence in the field of BAPCH comes from psychology, as psychology is primarily concerned with studying and attempting to understand individual behavior. BAPCH is regarded as one of the subfield of industrial psychology. In contrast to industrial that focuses more on individual level issues, organizational behavior is more concerned with social and group influences. Social psychology has made important contributions to our study of group behavior, power and conflict. Similarly, sociology, the study of society, has also made important contributions to knowledge about group and intergroup dynamics in the study of BAPCH. Anthropology, with its even more macro focus on human beings, has contributed to our understanding of organizational culture, organizational environment, and differences among national cultures and its implications for work behavior. Engineering, in contrast, has made important contributions to our understanding of design of work and organizational goal setting. Lastly, it might surprise you to know that medicine, with its concern for both physical and psychological health, has developed our understanding of industrial health and more recently, occupational health and well-being. 1.5.4 BAPCH recognizes organizations as open systems. The field of BAPCH pays a great deal of attention to the nature of organizations themselves. In studying organizations, BAPCH practitioners recognize that organizations are not fixed, but dynamic and ever-changing entities. In other words, they recognize that organizations are open systems. The open systems approach to organization assumes that organizations operate in a self-sustaining manner, transforming inputs into outputs in a continuous manner. Inputs consist of the human, informational, material, and financial resources used by the organization. These are transformed by the organization's technology component. Once the transformation is complete, they become outputs for customers, consumers and clients. Their actions, and others in the external environment, in turn affect the organization and the behavior of people at work. The output thus gets transformed back to input and the cycle continues. In an open system, the boundaries of an organization are permeable to the external environment, such as suppliers, customers, and governmental regulators. In addition to an organization's external task environment, there are 4 internal components: task, an organization's mission, purpose or goal for existing. People, both individuals and groups, make up the internal social system in the organization. People are the living, thinking and feeling beings that created the organization and try to achieve the objectives and goals. Technology, the technology imparts the physical and economic conditions within which people work. It comprises the wide range of tools, knowledge, and / techniques used to transform the inputs into outputs. Structure defines the formal relationship and use of people in the organization. It refers to the manner in which an organization's work is designed and the different roles that people are given and how they relate to others. In order to coordinate work effectively, it is imperative that people working in an organization are given different roles and they are related in some structural way to others. An important implication of the conception of organization as open systems in AB is the realization that no social structure is self-sufficient or self-contained. An organization is certainly open to its larger external environment, making its nature very dynamic. 2.5.5 AB adopts a cross-cultural approach. As the business environment is becoming global or international, a cross-cultural approach to the study of organizational behavior is increasingly becoming crucial for 2 main reasons. There are potential benefits to be gained in performance terms. Each country has its unique cultural characteristics which can provide sources of competitive advantage, and in some situations may also become liabilities. Workplace attitudes and behavior between individuals and groups in different cultural context varies. Cultural differences must be understood and managers must be sensitive to them in order to be successful in a global economy. It follows that the key concepts in the field of organizational behavior may be influenced by national cultures, and we should thus re-evaluate models and theories when applying them to other societies. But do you know what is culture? Herskovits designated culture as the man-made part of the environment. Culture is a multifaceted concept, comprising an outer layer of artifacts and products, for example language, climate, dress, food, etc., middle layer, expressed values, norms, attitudes and behaviors, and a core layer that relates to the deepest assumptions concerning people and nature held by a particular society, for example how people see themselves, public versus private space, etc. A cross-cultural approach to AB is thus recommended strongly. 1.8 Let us sum up. It can be summed up from the above discussion that AB is a very eminent field that contributes toward increasing organizational output of the employer and motivating employees to work. AB has several characteristics that are relevant and significant. The field of AB concerns itself with the study of the behavior of individuals and groups in the context of organizations. There are 3 key aspects to defining organizational behavior. 1. It uses a systematic, scientific and research-oriented approach. 2. It focuses on behavior at 3 distinct levels of analysis: individual, group, and organization. And 3. It is both basic and applied in nature, basic in generating knowledge and applied in using that knowledge. The field of AB has 4 goals: to describe, understand, predict and control behavior at the workplace. Some of the major characteristics of the field today are: 1. BAPCH seeks the betterment of human resources using a Theory Y approach as opposed to the traditional Theory X approach of management. 2. Instead of recommending a one best way of managing, BAPCH uses a contingency approach, implying that different situations require different behavioral practices for effectiveness. 3. BAPCH has a multidisciplinary focus, drawing from disciplines like psychology, social psychology, sociology, engineering, anthropology, management, and medicine. 4. BAPCH recognizes organizations as open systems, constantly adapting to their environments through a continuous inflow and outflow of energy through permeable boundaries. And 5. BAPCH adopts a cross-cultural approach, with the recognition that we should re-evaluate models and theories when applying them to other cultures.